Capital Logic. Today's case study, the Starbucks pricing strategy. Why you pay $7 for a coffee and feel good about it. We're going to show you exactly how this business model works, where the money actually comes from, and what most analysts miss. Like and subscribe if you want this kind of breakdown every week. Here is what you need to know. Starbucks successfully convinces millions of people to pay the price of a full meal for flavored milk and beans by legally redefining themselves as a real estate company. But on the surface, selling a $7 latte looks like brand suicide in a crowded market. Yet their margins keep climbing. Stay until the end. I'll break down 3 lessons from Starbucks' playbook you can apply to your business this week. If you want business breakdowns you can actually use, hit subscribe and the bell. To understand why you're willingly handing over $7 for a beverage that costs pennies to make, you have to go back to 1983. Howard Schultz, then the director of marketing for a regional Seattle coffee bean seller, took a business trip to Milan. He walked into an Italian espresso bar and saw something entirely foreign to American retail. It wasn't just a transaction. It was a theater. Baristas knew the names of their regulars. People stood at the counter or leaned against the bar, gossiping, reading, pausing their day. Schultz realized that Americans didn't have that. In the United States, coffee was functional. You brewed a bland cup at home out of a Folgers tin, or you grabbed a lukewarm mug at a diner where a waitress rushed you out the door the second your cup was empty. When Schultz eventually bought Starbucks and completely transformed its business model, he wasn't trying to sell you better coffee beans. He was importing a philosophy. He called it the third place. Your first place is your home. Your second place is your office. The third place is Starbucks, a carefully engineered sanctuary sitting right between the two. To pull this off, every single detail of the physical environment had to be deliberately manipulated. If you look closely at the architecture of nearly every Starbucks you walk into, the ordering counter is never right next to the entrance. You're forced to walk past merchandise, display cases filled with high-margin pastries, and rows of seated patrons. This layout isn't an architectural accident. It's a masterclass in social proof and impulse purchasing. It signals to your brain that this space is active, vibrant, and populated by people just like you. Warm, designed to soften the edges of the room and keep you relaxed. The acoustic masking and proprietary music playlists, curated historically through partnerships with groups like Concord Music Group, are scientifically structured to create a steady auditory hum that blocks out exterior street noise, encouraging you to settle in and stay a while. And yet, notice the chairs. In certain zones, particularly high-traffic areas, you'll find wooden, non-ergonomic chairs or stools. They are comfortable enough to let you drink your latte, but just uncomfortable enough to prevent you from camping out with a laptop indefinitely during a morning rush. It's a delicate balancing act of real estate psychology, maximizing customer throughput while maintaining an authentic, cozy aesthetic facade. Starbucks understood long before modern co-working spaces became a multi-billion-dollar industry that people will gladly pay a massive premium for square footage they don't own. In dense urban markets where home square footage is notoriously expensive and cramped, a $5 or $7 latte is effectively a cheap entry ticket to a clean, climate-controlled remote office with a reliable bathroom and a social atmosphere. To anchor customers there for hours, Starbucks pioneered free in-store Wi-Fi partnerships, starting with early landmark deals with AT&T and Google. By legally transforming dining areas into makeshift remote offices, they chain the customer to the ecosystem. Once you're tethered to the Wi-Fi for 2 hours, the friction of buying a second drink or a protein box drops to absolute zero. This brings us to the raw, unvarnished economics of what is actually happening behind that counter. When you slide your card or tap your phone for a customized beverage, you are participating in one of the most profitable retail margins in modern commerce. The cost of raw coffee beans typically represents less than 10% of a cup's retail price. Let that sink in. The actual coffee inside your cup is practically a rounding error on the corporate balance sheet. Across the broader coffee and quick service restaurant sector, the average gross margin on specialty beverage items sits comfortably between 70 and 85%. That staggering financial cushion is the hidden engine that allows Starbucks to absorb volatile commercial real estate leases, fluctuating global supply chains, and aggressive labor overhead across its massive global footprint. Starbucks operates over 40,000 stores globally, split roughly evenly between company-operated and licensed formats. In fiscal 2024, Those stores generated a staggering $36.2 billion in global net revenues. That kind of scale doesn't happen by accident, and it certainly doesn't happen by selling a simple agricultural commodity. Instead, Starbucks built a masterclass in upselling architecture right into its menu and digital ecosystem. Take a standard base drink, like a cafe latte. On its own, it's already priced well above what it costs to produce. But then comes the psychological lever of customization. Adding flavored syrups, extra espresso shots, alternative milks like oat or almond, or a drizzle of caramel can easily double the base price of drink. The introduction of alternative milks was a stroke of pricing genius. By charging an extra 80 cents to $1 for plant-based milks, Starbucks captured high-margin upcharges from health-conscious or dietary-restricted consumers who didn't even blink at the additional cost because it was masked as a lifestyle choice. And then there's the middle agricultural commodity, heavily on psychological anchoring and the decoy effect. When you look up at a Starbucks menu board, notice where your eyes go. High-priced specialty seasonal beverages are strategically placed right at eye level, acting as cognitive anchors. When you see a heavily marketed seasonal drink priced at nearly $8, the standard latte beside it suddenly looks like a reasonable, budget-friendly compromise. Furthermore, Starbucks deliberately omits currency symbols from its menu boards. This isn't a trendy design choice. It's a proven behavioral economics tactic designed to reduce the pain of paying. When you see numbers without dollar signs, your brain processes the figures as abstract points rather than a direct subtraction from your bank account, keeping your focus entirely on the experiential value of the brand rather than the financial loss. Even the sizing nomenclature is engineered. By labeling a small drink tall, which is actually the smallest size most people register, and pushing the grande and venti formats, Starbucks utilizes asymmetric dominance. The price steps between sizes are kept narrow enough that the consumer's internal monologue automatically whispers, "For just 50 cents more, I get double the volume." You walk away feeling like you hacked the system, while Starbucks walks away with a higher average ticket size. Meanwhile, independent coffee shops attempting to compete purely on the quality of their roast routinely struggle against this machine. They focus on the bean, while Starbucks focuses on the entire economic and psychological container holding the bean. The real genius of the modern Starbucks business model didn't come from a better bean. It came from a smartphone screen. When Starbucks rolled out its mobile app and digital rewards ecosystem, it didn't just digitize the ordering process. It quietly turned a coffee chain into a financial institution. Think about what happens when you load money onto your Starbucks card or mobile app. You're handing over cash today for goods you plan to consume tomorrow. Multiply that by millions of customers, and you realize that Starbucks is holding billions of dollars in unearned customer prepayments. Historically, the company has collected over $1.5 billion in stored value card liabilities and unredeemed gift card breakage. That is effectively an interest-free, unregulated mini bank sitting right in your pocket. While traditional banks pay out interest to attract deposits, Starbucks gets you to pay them up front just for the privilege of buying their coffee later. And because that balance sits in digital accounts, a significant percentage of those funds are never redeemed at all, turning pure breakage into direct, unearned profit. This digital architecture completely transformed how the company locks in consumer behavior. By the time active U.S. Starbucks Rewards membership surpassed 35.5 million users, the brand had constructed an airtight behavioral trap. These loyalty members aren't just casual buyers. They drive approximately 41 to 60% of total U.S. company-operated sales. If you look at the raw data, the math is staggering. Loyalty members spend roughly 2.5 to 3 times more annually than a standard walk-in customer. More importantly, the customer retention rate for Starbucks hovers around 44%, nearly double the general quick-service restaurant industry average of 25%. How do they keep you coming back at that rate? Through aggressive, hyper-personalized data engineering. The app tracks your purchasing habits, your favorite modifications, and the exact times your routine lapses. If you usually buy a latte on Tuesday morning and miss a week, a targeted push notification with a star multiplier challenge hits your phone precisely when your habit loop starts to fade. It's gamified consumption. And because the app handles the transaction, it removes the social friction of the register. Without a cashier staring at you, you're far more likely to add a pastry, upgrade your size, or layer on high-margin modifiers. Customization is a silent profit engine. Adding extra espresso shots, specialized syrups, or alternative milks like oat or almond can easily double the base price of a drink, even though the incremental ingredient cost to Starbucks is pennies. With the average gross margin on specialty beverage items sitting between 70 and 85%, every digital customization adds an already massive financial cushion. Yet, this digital dominance is only half the equation. To truly understand how Starbucks scales, you have to look at the physical and global footprint that anchors the entire operation. Starbucks now operates over 40,000 stores globally, split roughly evenly between company-operated and licensed formats. These aren't just coffee shops. They are high-visibility urban billboards. Corporate real estate strategy dictates securing prime corner locations in dense metropolitan areas where foot traffic is highest. Even in suburban drive-thrus, the physical layout is meticulously engineered for high-speed throughput while retaining the psychological halo of the master brand. Independent coffee shops often struggle to compete because they view themselves as being in the food and beverage business. They try to compete on the price of the coffee bean itself, ignoring the reality that the cost of raw coffee beans typically represents less than 10% of a cup's retail price. You aren't paying for the bean. You are paying for the real estate, the Wi-Fi, the ambient lighting, the curated playlist, and the psychological safety of a globally uniform product. And Starbucks doesn't stop at the physical storefront. Through the Global Coffee Alliance with Nestle, the company expanded its reach into the channel development segment, pushing packaged coffees and ready-to-drink beverages into grocery stores and global markets. Because this packaged goods model piggybacks on an existing distribution network without the overhead of retail real estate, it yields operating margins approaching 50%. When you aggregate all of these moving parts, the digital banking float, the hyper-engaged loyalty base, the real estate dominance, and the high-margin consumer packaged goods, the macro results speak for themselves. Starbucks reported global net revenues of $36.2 billion in fiscal 2024. An empire built on roasted seeds has evolved into a masterclass in behavioral economics, real estate optimization, and digital retention. But looking at the sheer scale of those numbers, a deeper question remains, one that exposes the exact mechanics of why this model succeeds where others flatline. Now here are 3 lessons from Starbucks' playbook you can apply to your own business. Lesson 1. Sell an atmospheric experience instead of just a commodity. Enhance your store layout, lighting, and service interaction to justify higher margins like Starbucks does. When you stop competing on the raw cost of goods and start charging for the environment surrounding them, price resistance practically disappears. Customers aren't just paying for the roasted beans in their cup. They're paying for the hour of productivity or peace they get while sitting in your space. Lesson 2. Leverage digital rewards to lock in high customer value. Implement a simple mobile app or punch card system that incentivizes prepayments and tracks frequent buyer habits. By getting cash up front through a digital wallet, Starbucks effectively turned themselves into an unregulated mini bank holding billions in prepaid customer balances. You can create that same sticky ecosystem by rewarding your most loyal buyers for keeping their funds locked inside your business. Lesson